everyone. Oh, there's a lot of people here. I'm so not used to seeing people still. I mean, COVID and everything. But welcome, everyone. This is going to be my presentation on the social engineering pen testing and the aftermath of it, and if we are being ethically responsible. Just let everyone have a seat first. Yeah, thank you. Awesome. So I will first start telling who I am. You can call me Bridget. That's the easy version of my name. Since I'm Norwegian, my Norwegian name, well, it's not easy. So I work as a red team analyst at Orange Cyber Defense in Norway, where I specialize in social engineering and OSINT. I've been working in IT since 2007, which feels like a really long time now. My main topic, of course, is social engineering, and I started having an interest in social engineering when I attended a CTF, a social engineering CTF, at Temple University in 2020. So, yeah, here I am today, basically. Now, you all guys had some coffee, so you probably won't fall asleep today, I'm hoping. But this is just a short outline of what we're going through today. We're going to start with a bit of a short social engineering history, just to catch up. And then I'm going to go through some stories from real-life experiences of social engineering pen testing and others. And then we're going to talk a bit about the human psyche in relation to social engineering pen testing. And then we will also look at what can happen if we don't deal with the aftermath correctly. So, first off, a quick speed run into history. Ever since the dawn of human society, we have been social engineering, basically because we all want to connect with others, and we all want to be part of a society, and therefore we try to obtain what we need for survival purposes. So we will start talking to people, and we will try to get what we want. And the prime example of who's good at social engineering is probably our children, for sure. At least mine is. So until, I don't know, at the end of the last century, people started to use this in relation to information technology. People are starting to get these messages, the I love you virus and the Melissa virus, where people were lured into opening attachments in emails. And ever since then, it has just escalated. And about a decade later, in the 2010-ish, people started to commercialize testing using social engineering techniques and to pen test companies using that. And I guess that's why I have a job today. So this is just a short history speedrun here, just to keep everyone in the loop. So I'm going to go right through it. And the next slide is going to be a little cluttered. It's going to show you a lot of Twitter messages. These are messages where people have been social engineering pen testing, but definitely been using the wrong bait. As you can see here, people react quite emotionally when you, for instance, try to lure them by saying, hey, you got a gift card. If you just press this link, you can obtain it now. Or as you can see here, it is all about how you get clicked on it, and then you can see that, oh, I'm not clicking any more links. People get distrustful. People say that, yeah, I'm not going to do the mandatory training afterwards, and so what. So it can generate some serious emotions in people when people are being tested. And everyone probably knows the GoDaddy down there, where people were being tested by saying they got a Christmas bonus. And unfortunately, it was a fish. So it can create a lot of emotions in people. And I will also show you that this just doesn't happen. This happens everywhere. It also happens closer to home for me. This is from my job. So Orange Cyber Defense, they hired someone to do internal testing. And while this seemed like the perfect pretext, like, hey, your vacation has been denied, you got to click here. This person, he had just been working on a project, and he had been working day and night for a long time, and he just applied for his vacation. And then he got this email, seemingly from Orange Cyber Defense as well. And he was so stressed, like, oh, I'm not going to get my vacation. I need it. I so desperately need it. So he clicked the link. And I mean, this is a person working in the field of security, and he still clicked this link. And then he went in for a roller coaster of emotions, like, hey, I was duped into clicking this link. But it seemed real, and I was supposed to have vacation. So this didn't do anything for him. Like, what did he learn from getting this? Definitely nothing. He just got really agitated, and I saw this in the internal channel, and I just had to bring this with. So all he felt was that someone did something wrong to him. I will continue on by telling you a lot about some stories from the big world as well, because this happens everywhere. The first story I'm going to tell you, I'm still not used to this screen, sorry. The first story I'm going to tell you is actually UK-based. It's a story of when an Australian radio show called up the hospital that Kate Middleton was in. And they called and they tried to get information and lured a way to get in, saying that they were family members and that they needed some information. Now, they played this on the radio show in Australia on how they got information, and it all ended up with the nurse committing suicide a week later. Because what happened was that they didn't focus on the victim itself. All they focused on was their goal and how fun it was and yeah, everything else. The person who was duped was not in focus. And of course, you can say that, yes, she might have killed herself because her mental health was bad, but they were the ones pushing her over the edge at the moment. And that's also why it's so important to think of the aftermath. Now, this just doesn't happen on radio shows. It also happens in the industry. So the second story is that there was this pen tester that I've heard of who was going to test a company. And he was looking for OSINT information, and he found this ID card of one of the employees. It was together with a post of a guy who had recently lost his father. And it was like, finally, I landed the job of my dreams. My father would have been so proud of me. And he had to write this in the report because he used that ID card to create a fake one, and he used it in the social engineering pen test. And the person got fired afterwards. There was no more dream job for him at all. So, I mean, the pen tester, he had the best of intentions. He was doing his job, and then all of a sudden, he knows that this guy, where this was his dream job, got fired because of the report he did. And also, as the third story, this is just to show that this happens everywhere, to round it up a bit. So the last one I'm going to tell you is a story that a friend of mine, Tinker, told me. He said that during one of his pen tests, he tested retail companies in a country. And he tested them by going in with a coworker, saying that, hey, we need to update the system. And 3 out of the 4 places, they let him in. They let him into the machines and just do whatever. And the third place, there was this guy who was like, no, we need approval. We need approval from HQ. You cannot go in here and do this. And they couldn't get in. So they were like, OK, they didn't fail. So Tinker was like, hey, told him about the test because he wanted a name for the report, to give him some kudos, to say that, hey, he actually did the right thing. And this was it's around this time. So it was almost Christmas, people were stressed out. And he told him that, hey, this was a test. We're not here to update the retail system. And he was like, so you were standing here lying to me? I needed that update. So he actually got quite mad. So even though he didn't fail the test, it still created some serious emotions in that guy. So this is just to show that all of the things we're doing when we're social engineering pen testing, when we are sending out phishing emails, when we're doing physical testing, they can create adverse reactions in people, and we never know how they will respond. Now, to look at why it is like this, you can see that the blame game is very common. Like everyone will be like, hey, it was you, or no, it was you. And that is a protective human response. Because in psychology, it has been heavily discussed when it comes to scamming, that because being fooled like this during a social engineering test has quite a similar mental response as when a person is scammed. So it's just the same as when someone is trying to get your money, basically. So when people are feeling duped, I love that word, duped, it is this unpleasant feeling of being taken advantage of. And how to respond to that depends on the individual, how they respond. I mean, some people, they are more prone to getting into that self-blame, like, oh, what did I do wrong now? Oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And they blame themselves, while others are, hey, this was your fault, you didn't do this, and so on. So people would just start pointing fingers either at themselves or others, which, I mean, others will be like, oh, this was fun, whatever. You never know which person you're going to meet. So if people start blaming each other, you're kind of not learning anything from it. And so basically, it is possible that if you look at all the 3 stories that I just presented, you can probably put yourself in their shoes and think, oh, I would have responded like that as well. Or I don't see why they did that. That's just a weird reaction. So the main thing is that we are all different, and we all respond differently. And when we do this thing, we do the whole testing, and we don't know how humans respond, the testers has to write this in a report. And these reports, they can still affect the individuals themselves. They can reveal the victims' names unintentionally. This should stay anonymous, but still they can reveal them because someone recognizes them, and then they still get the blame. And there are also situations where they need to reveal the victims, which again can be really, it can be hard for the tester to do, but sometimes it has to be done. So the consequence of this can actually be that when you reveal, like for instance, that the ones cleaning the location were holding the door, all of a sudden they don't get a contract renewal, which is, well, I don't want that on my conscience, at least as a tester. There can be employees losing their jobs, or you can just start a whole bunch of blame games where people are just blaming each other, saying that, oh, this was your fault, and then no one is. There is one really important thing, and I really need to see this, that none of these scenarios results in a good learning experience. If you start blaming each other, no one will have the possibility of evolving their security culture. Now, before I dive into how to try and deal with the human response to the aftermath, it is important to look at the fact that someone being duped in a social engineering pentest is really high. So there will always be someone you have to deal with that ends up falling for it. My former professor, Dr. François Mouton, he told me the story of a conference where the attendees were tested prior to the event. And this mail was sent out to all the attendees of the IISA conference in 2011, where the security experts were the main clientele. So this mail was sent to all the first authors of papers, and it actually resulted in 66% clicking the link. Now, and this was security professionals. So if 66% of those can fall for it, then think about everyone else who's not educated in security, meaning that everyone can fall for a social engineering attack, making it even more important to know how we should actually deal with the people involved, because there will always be someone that has either clicked that link or opened that door or, yeah, just given away something that they shouldn't. So Tinker told me this during one of our chats, and I thought it was so important that I actually had to have a whole slide for it, that one individual failing a social engineering test is not an indication of an individual's failure. It is the indication of a systemic failure. If one individual fails, everyone else can fail as well. And that's really important because us humans, we are trusting. Anthropologically speaking, we are meant to be together in packs. And this makes all of us strive for connection. We all want to have this connection with other people. So everyone is prone to fail a social engineering test because we really want to talk to people, we want to connect, and when people really want information from you, they can get it. But a society where we all try to mitigate social engineering pen testing by not talking to people, not trusting people, it's just not feasible. I mean, it would be a really cold world to live in if no one were to trust each other. So it's therefore important to have systems surrounding the people, controls that will help and avoid people falling for a social engineering pen test. Because as Tinker said, it is the indication of a systemic failure. It is not the individual's failure. That means that we need to have controls around the human element to protect them from being duped that way. We need to do something to help them to not be lured into this trap. Because everyone can fail. I can fail as well. Even though I do social engineering for a living, I can still fail. Anyone here can probably come up to me and get information from me if they want. Do not try that, please. It's not a contest. Remember that. All of a sudden, I get a lot of information out there. Sorry. Yeah. So it's so important to see that we need to know how we shall treat the people. Because the people, there will always be someone being duped, and most of us will once or twice in our life anyways. That's why, as Joe Gray has said in his book, debriefing is an important aspect of the social engineering pen test, as well as keeping the victims anonymous, of course, to the most possible extent. So debriefing a company on is an important part of the process, because you have to, yeah, sorry, I just need to drink some water. I mean, you can debrief on a company level and say that, hey, this is how it happened. You need to see that, okay, this is how it happened, this is how you should be doing it. But some people might have different needs for information in the aftermath. Some people who has been lured as a victim might need to have a more direct approach. They might need to talk to the pen tester. They might need to have communication with the HR to talk about it, to walk through the process. So we need to cater for that. You need to cater for that everyone might need either a general debriefing or even individual ones. So what I experienced during a physical engagement last year was that I was testing a company. I was in there for about 4 hours. And I was talking to people, and it was really intense. I mean, I was there, they trusted me. And in the aftermath, the company that I was pen testing, they didn't have any adverse reaction to it. They didn't punish anyone, and they were taking care of them, having the ability to talk to them, and so on. But I still didn't feel like I was done. I mean, this has been a person that I've been together for a long extent of my day. So luckily, as part of my research into the aftermath, I got to talk to these people that I've been pen testing. And when I did, I discovered that one of them were like, oh yeah, it was cool, whatever, you know, I'm done with it and everything. And that was nice. And the second one, she said to me that, yeah, I'm really strong mentally, so I don't blame myself for anything. She felt like, oh yeah, it happened, you know. But she also said to me, yeah, at first I thought about it every day for the first week. I thought about what I did, how I did, what you did. And then it recurred next week, and then still had happened over the last 6 months. It had happened on a monthly basis that she kept on going back to it, thinking about it, and just not getting over with it. So we talked, and then after we had talked, she said that I feel like I finally got closure. Like now I'm done with it. Because we talked through it. We talked through what I did and how I did it and what she felt. And it was a really nice experience for me as well as a tester, because I was also done with it after that. And it's just so important that she felt like she had closure. I mean, she was a mentally strong person. She didn't blame herself or anything. And that makes me wonder about, what about those people who are not? What about those people who's had a really bad day and had a bad month or year, and then this happens and they start blaming themselves? Some people are more prone to blame themselves as well. And how do we deal with that? So sometimes a direct debrief with a person who has been duped in a way, especially directly. For instance, a person has been called and talked to someone, or someone has met them physically, that maybe they need a direct debrief with the parties involved. So what I was thinking about when I was talking with this person was that, yeah, I might have played a bit too much of The Sims. Is there any Sims players here? Oh, there was one, yay! I'm not alone. Probably everyone was too afraid to raise their hand or haven't played it, but yeah. So basically in The Sims, we have this bar, this friendship bar, where people are talking to each other, and then they get this, it goes to the green when you build rapport. So when a pentester builds rapport, you get to the green like really, really fast. And then when you go and they figure out that, hey, they were being tested, that bar drops like all the way down. I mean, you usually start at 0, depending on, yeah, you just start at 0 and then you go up, but then you go down. And I don't know about you guys, but if you ever had a friend who you ended up having this good relationship with, and then all of a sudden you're not friends anymore, and you guys have kind of things that you end up on this red level, like you have unfinished business, basically. And you feel like you have trusted that person, you have given of yourself, and believe me, after a couple of hours, you do share a lot of things. And if you then realize that that person you shared it with is not your friend, it's not the one you thought it was, you will still feel that. Even a couple of years later, you can still feel that. I mean, if you have a friend who you're not friends with anymore, and you will still think about them. It will still occur to you that, oh, I need to, what happened? How did this happen? What can I do to change it? So now this test that I did with this woman was a very direct test. But I still think that when you're doing a test and you get to this level that you actually get a lot of, you build rapport and you share stuff as human beings do, that sometimes it is often the best to actually end up having that relationship bar reset to 0. And that's what, for me and this woman, did after the debrief. That we felt like we had closure, we felt like we reset that level. I was no longer just the scammer, the evil one. Because I went back to being the acquaintance that she had originally, because her trust in me was gone. Because, oh, she was just duping me. It's not good, basically. So I believe that it helps to actually do a debrief with people who had a very extensive test to get the relationship bar reset to 0. So I consulted a person experienced in human resources, and she said to me that conducting a social engineering pen test for a company should not be up to the IT security department only or a single individual. It should involve a greater network that may consist of the HR and other personnel that can support and watch the mental status of the employees affected. And there should be measures in place that the company can take care of the emotional status and reactions of the ones who have fallen victim to a test, and as well as clear guidelines on how to follow up the humans after the test. And I think this is really important because HR is an asset to a company. And when performing a test on the human element, it is wise for the company to internally consult them so that they can make a follow-up plan on how to deal with them. So another important aspect when it comes to meeting those falling for a real-life social engineering attack is security culture. There has been a lot of talks about security culture and the importance of building a good one within the companies. So unfortunately, we can see that the companies, they react in the aftermath of an attack and not proactively often. But so people try to do awareness training, they try to do tests. So they test people for social engineering attacks by doing phishing exercises and so on. But it has been documented that for the first 45 days, people are very vigilant. They don't open anything. And then after 60 days, they're back to their old habits, like they've forgotten it. And what happens then is that, oh, yeah, we need to do testing regularly, need to do exercises regularly, and so on. But if the tests are like the one test that I showed you from internally in Northern Cyber Defense, where you get tested and it is distressing to the humans, it is just annoying. And people who work at a company who does these kind of tests will just get annoyed, basically. And so therefore, they can have this adverse response to the testing, making it works against what its intention is. So building security culture is important when it comes to not only mitigating the risk of the company falling for a social engineering attack in the IT domain, but also lessening the impact when it occurs. Because when a human being is being tested and they, for instance, get, oh, yeah, you were tested, you got this fish, now you got mandatory security awareness training. How many here would like having mandatory security awareness training? Yeah, of course, but if you had clicked the link, would you like having it? Yeah, well, not always, probably, but some people will feel like, oh, I was being punished. Punishment is never good for security culture, because what will happen is that when you punish a person during a test, saying that, hey, now you get to get security training because you pushed that link, or as I heard, the worst case was 3 strikes and you're out policy. Push a link 3 times during a test and you're out. That's kind of a scary. I would never touch a link ever again, to be honest. But so when you do that and you punish them, what will happen when a social engineering attack actually occurs? Will they tell you? Probably not. And then the company will have an undetected vulnerability, which in turn is not good for security culture. I mean, when people are afraid to report what has happened, it is not good for the company. So people need to be safe enough to feel like they can report when it happens. And that can only happen if we actually don't respond by punishing people when they fall for a test. Because as I said earlier, everyone can fall for it. So it's just a matter of time. And you need to think of the controls that you're implementing surrounding the people. So ending up to blaming each individual is probably not the correct approach. But, I mean, what happens if a test is handled badly? What happens if you start punishing them? I mean, if you start punishing them and they can feel bad, they can feel like they are being punished, what can happen? I mean, if you do a test, it can happen like the GoDaddy test, where it ends up in the media and you get really bad public response, which is not good for either the pen testing company or the company doing the test. You can have employees being disgruntled. You can have employees quitting. So it can affect so much more than just single individual. It can affect the company as a whole. So, and as a pen tester myself, which I can mostly speak for, is that if a test goes wrong, if I can see that, oh, they handled their employees bad, I would feel really, really unprofessional myself, because then I've done a test and it has affected another person in a bad way. Or I can see that they're not, I mean, I can only give them the data, but if they use that data to punish people, it doesn't feel good for me, and it feels like my professional credibility has taken a major blow. So where does the responsibility lie for taking care of the people involved? Is it the ones requesting the test, the pen testers, the HR department? I would think that it's all a collaborative effort between everyone. Everyone needs to come together and say, hey, we should do this. We should make these, we should ensure good grounds for a learning experience. It shouldn't just be about the wins. It should be about how do we actually use this data and how should we actually treat the people. So processes should be made so that pen testers can feel that the job they're doing is responsible and that they're truly taking on their white hat and not their gray hat when doing this test. And the pen testing company should have a clear vision of how the people should be treated and guide their customer in this. I mean, they should guide them and say that, hey, you shouldn't end up firing them, by the way. So everyone loses if the aftermath is handled badly, basically. So I think that this topic needs further discussion in the community, because everyone can feel bad if a test goes awry. And what we don't want to end up with is a bunch of people having done a test and everyone's just mad and no one learns from it. The three key takeaways I have here, it was really hard figuring out what I was going to say here. So the first one is that social engineering pen test planning should be a collaborative effort in the company. As I was just saying, that if you're doing a test, everyone should be involved. You should think about, okay, how do we deal with the people? What should we do with the test results? How can we create a good learning experience for everyone? And as a pen testing company, if you see that the company you're going to test will not take care of their employees in the aftermath, if they're not going to use this data correctly, they should actually just say no to the test. Because if they say yes and they put a pen tester on it, that pen tester also has to deal with the professional aftermath of it as well as the victims of the test will have to deal with it and the mentally. So number two is that punishment does not encourage learning. You will not get a good security culture if you punish people for failing a test. You will rather make them so scared that they will not report to you when it actually happens in real life. And number three, people can feel bad afterwards, so you have to treat them well. I often think that when you have your employees, you should treat your employees as you want to be treated yourself. And that's hopefully with respect, and that you're being met on your emotions. And I think that we can all learn from what my 6-year-old daughter's teacher said to her, was that when she started school, they said that, oh, yeah, hey, you failed, like you wrote something wrong, you wrote the letter A backwards and whatnot. He came over to her and said, so good that you failed, now you have the ability to learn. So encourage a good and open work culture where failure is just being human is a good thing. We are not robots. Now, this was just a little overview. I could probably discuss this topic for hours and probably more in the dialogue experience. I just want to show you that this is my reference wall of fame. There's probably much more, because we're all standing on the shoulders of giants, and I had the pleasure of talking to several people about this. And so thank you to all the lovely people mentioned here and all the others I didn't. So for me, it's important that people just have an open discussion about this topic. Now, I'm just going to go to the last slide here. And before I start the questions, I'm going to say that I'm going to have the community program lead at 4:15 in Business Hall Theatre C, where I will continue the discussion further and hopefully have a dialogue with those who come there. So I hope to see someone there. And as I was told, there is a microphone in the middle here. So if people want to ask me questions, they can go there. And if not, there's social media. People can reach me on. So thank you. And any questions, then go over there, please. Thanks.